evening, everyone. It's always a pleasure to be here. And for this week's Gospel moment, I bring to you the following passage that's found in chapter 10 of the Gospel explained by the Spiritist Doctrine on page 135. It is John 8, 3 through 11. And in this passage, the men of the law of Jesus' era and the Pharisees were about to stone a woman to death for having committed adultery. And so, in seeing the master approach, they turned to him and they were trying to trap and accuse him by saying the following to him. Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. In the law, Moses commanded to us to stone such women. Now what do you say? So Jesus stooped down and began to write on the sand as if to contemplate a response. And then finally, he got up, stood up, turned to the Pharisees and the men of the law of that era and said, if any of you is without sin, let him be the first to throw a stone at her. And here is the first lesson. This sentence, this phrase, was so deep that it caused the Pharisees to contemplate it and to think about what they were about to do. So what happened? Jesus went back down and began and continued to write on the sand, and the Pharisees and the men of the law started to walk away. The oldest ones first. Why the oldest ones? Because the oldest ones were the ones that realized they've lived a long life, so they more than likely have committed some sins, as this woman supposedly committed or allegedly committed. So who are they to throw that first stone? So here was the first lesson. And as he was kneeling down on the sand, he turned to the woman and he said, where are the men that condemned you? Where have they gone to? Have they left? And the woman said, yes, Master, they've all left. It is just you and I. And then Jesus looked to her and said, well then, go on and leave, for I did not condemn you. Go ahead and leave and no longer sin. And here is the second lesson of the passage. Because first we see that we should not judge others because we have plenty of flaws and defects. And the second lesson is to leave and no longer sin. In other words, if you don't want to go through a trial like that, do not create a problem or a cause that will lead to this consequence. If she no longer wanted to go through these types of scenarios, she would have to no longer commit these issues, these errors, these mistakes that she made. So here are the two lessons of the passage. And the passage exemplifies tolerance, because we need to be tolerant to others just as much as we need tolerance for ourselves. Because our brothers and sisters might make mistakes, they might commit errors, but we also do the same thing. So who are we to judge others? If we're all found on earth, and the earth, as the spirits tell us, is a planet of trials and expiations, that means that we all have transgressed the divine law at some point, either in this life or in a past life. So who are we to say anything? We do not have the moral authority to judge anyone. If God, who is the highest moral authority of the cosmos, and if Jesus, who is the highest moral authority of this earth, does not condemn or judge, who are we to judge? We are small, inferior creatures, tiny grains of sand in the earth, and the earth itself is a tiny grain of sand in this great beach called the galaxy, which is also a tiny grain of sand in this infinite beach known as the universe. So who are we to say anything? It is not our place. Because God doesn't judge. Jesus, as I said, does not judge. He told the woman who committed adultery, I did not condemn you. Why? Because Jesus, being that spirit who's traversed all of these journeys, who's evolved to the position that he finds himself in now as a superior, purified spirit, he understands that we all make mistakes because he's been through there. He's gone through that scenario, through those situations. So he understands. So who is he to judge? Because he may have found himself at some point in time long, long ago in the same position as this woman may have found herself, or as this woman found herself. So who are we to judge at all? We do not have any moral authority. The only authority that we may have is within our conscience. We have to allow our consciences to be our judges. Because the spirits tell us that the law of God, the divine law, is written within our conscience. So, as soon as we realize that we're making mistakes, that we're transgressing the laws of God, something will awaken within us, and we will connect to the Father and realize that we need to stop committing these mistakes, so that we no longer experience these consequences that are so trying in this world. And Jesus here in this passage is not trying to say that we should not criticize or perhaps work against evil forces, But he's saying that now that we've perhaps transcended and understood that by creating problems, we earn these consequences, and that as beings that have transcended this position, we can turn to our brothers and sisters who have not yet transcended and understood this connection and offer a charitable hand and offer fraternity and solidarity and saying, let me help you out. Let me show you the way. Jesus showed us the way. He is the way, the truth, and the life. And he invited us to join him. So it is up to us now, understanding our position on earth, to do the same for our brothers who are yet to understand this. So this is what this passage means, basically. And in essence, what we should do is, if we want to efface evil from earth, we have to smother it with a pillow of love, so that this evil may suffocate, asphyxiate, and discarnate, and no longer be part of this planet, so that we can have true love, fraternity, because we're all a great family. We're a global family. We cannot judge anyone in this world, because who are we to judge? And there is a great passage in the same chapter, chapter 10, which is item 16, that was written by a guardian spirit named Joseph, that was psychographed in Bordeaux in 1863. Now, I read this passage for my last gospel moment because it applied to that passage as well. And this excerpt that I'm going to read for you also applies to this passage. And it is in accordance with the theme of tolerance. Let me just find it here one moment. And it goes as follows. Tolerance never dwells on the defects of others unless it is to offer help. And even then, will try to do it in the most gentle manner. Tolerance never makes shocking statements or reproaches anyone. Instead, it offers advice, usually in a tactful way. When you criticize, what conclusion should the objective person ideally come to? That you are not guilty of trying of the same thing yourself? That you are worthier than the other person? We ask every human being, when will you judge your own hearts, thoughts, and actions first, and stop worrying about what your brothers and sisters are doing? When will you look critically only at yourselves? So in other words, when are we going to awaken our inner consciences and realize that we suffer the consequences of our actions, and that we need to stop transgressing the divine law? And that even though we have brothers and sisters who continue to do so in the environment of the earth, we need to allow the tide of progress to work itself out. Because the divine laws they progress, they're constant, they don't stop. So eventually those brothers are going to have to realize, they're going to have to wake up to this connection with the conscience, and then they will no longer commit these mistakes, and they will be able to embrace the true existence of our lives, the true purpose of our lives here on earth. Thank you very much.